presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5, $100 match on your first deposit when you use the promo code. Welcome to Light Years. Same as Fandiari here. I got across from me. I got my guy Tommy. You guys all know Tommy. He's been sitting in time to time. I'll talk about this later when Andy's on the pod, but as everyone knows, Andy's gearing up to have his first kid in the season, and thus he'll be podding less frequently than he normally does, and Tommy's going to be coming on more and more often. So if you guys hate him, hit that unsubscribe. No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. I promise I can get him up to speed. What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well, Sam. Doing well. Like you kind of just said, excited to be joining you more this season. Excited to talk Warriors ball. And I'm, over the last couple of days, media day stuff, first couple of days of practice, I'm slowly but surely buying into this team more and more. So I'm excited to dive more into it and getting more and more optimistic almost by the hour, I think.
It's just the addiction. It's really what it is. Because if I think rationally, I like the moves they made, but I'm still disappointed they didn't make the larger move to complete this roster to be a true contender. But with that said, I see Steph, I see Draymond, I see the other guys. They're in Hawaii. I quite frankly, I'm getting a little FOMO. I'm kind of like jealous. I want to go. I need a vacation. I want to go to Hawaii. Seriously. And I'm just ready for them to have a game on Saturday so we can see what we're working with. It's preseason. I never try to read too much into it, but I'm kind of hyped.
No, I'm really excited, and I'm convincing myself that every potential outcome will be the best outcome. That's the point of the season that I'm at right now. Everything's going to go well. Pods is going to be most improved player. Kuminga's going to take a leap defensively. Buddy's going to be exactly what we need him to be. Melton on down the roster. So that's that. I'm in full optimism season right now.
Man, and then you're gonna watch it like motherfuckers.
I'll be pissed off 6 minutes into the first preseason game. I know that much.
All right. So one of the hotter topics is Klay's gone. Who's starting at the 2 guard spot? At least that's what they've been asking. So I'm gonna play Steph's audio real quick.
You've had almost the perfect backcourt partner starting next to you for a decade. Obviously, he's gone now. One of the stories of this camp is who's going to emerge as the starting 2. What do you like? What's ideal for you as a starting backcourt mate next year?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
that was nice. I like how you put that. That was good. I think we have options. Obviously, we have a defensive-minded guy like Melton. You got a guy that's kind of a connector, can put the ball on the floor, create with BP. Obviously, me and BP started a couple times last year. You got Buddy who can shoot, space the floor, a veteran who knows how to play. You got a lot of options. I don't know. And then how with the backcourt in combination with our front court with size and versatility, there's a lot of things that we got to figure out this camp. To summarize it, I like where we're at with our options though, because I know.
I'll stop it right there. Classic Steph, just the master of talking for 2 minutes and giving you very little. But summed it up. Those are kind of their 3 options. First thing that jumps out to me is Moses Moody doesn't get listed there, but I think it's pretty obvious they don't see him as a guard.
No, he's definitely more of a wing to them. And I mean, I could see him getting minutes at the 3, so I wouldn't be mad at that if that's how it played out. But sure. I think honestly, the first thing that stands out for me from this Steph quote is he's kind of entering his version of a Kobe 2013 to 2016 era, where he's for him slightly more ornery, will be a little bit more honest. Yeah. He's still always going to be Steph the politician, that's just who he is. But he's a little bit more he'll be a little bit more touch and go with the media. But yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about, this spot specifically a lot as training camp has started, and I really don't know how it's going to play out. I can see reasons for all 3. And I think Slater wrote a short piece about it. Either I think it dropped today or it dropped yesterday, just talking about the 3 options and how they all kind of bring something different. They're essentially trying to recreate Klay in the aggregate, more or less, at least the prime version of Klay.
Shout out Moneyball.
Yeah, shout out Billy Bean.
What was I going to say? So the lame answer is I guarantee you all 3 of the guys you listed will start games this year.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a little bit of a committee thing. My question for you is, who do you think is the opening night shooting guard? because I can promise you Steve will start Melton, Pods, and Buddy at different points in preseason just to see how it looks, as he should, right? Who's starting opening night?
Man, I'm torn. I don't think it's going to be Buddy. I do not think it will be Buddy. I'm torn between D'Anthony and Pods. If you had to put me on the spot right now and just kind of judging by some of Steve's comments so far that I've heard, they want to be defensive minded. I would lean Melton, the veteran. They signed him on kind of a prove it deal. I think they want to do good by him. And I think some of the talk that they're having with, like, we got to find the right combinations, not only for the first unit, but for the second unit. I do think you want to bring some shot creation off the bench, and Pods does facilitate that and bring that. So I would lean Melton, but that's not a strong answer. Let's put it that way. Like that's my hunch, but I don't know if it's going to play out in that direction.
I honestly think it depends on who they start in the front court too.
Sure.
Draymond had some comments about wanting to start a center, and we'll get to that later. If they start a center, that means one of Wiggins or Kuminga is coming off of the bench. Kuminga, because I'm not convinced he could play the 3 with 2 non-shooters. Like, he would need to take a massive leap shooting-wise to do that. So if they go with Draymond and let's just say Trace and Wiggins at the 3, I think it's a lot easier to get away with. I think A, you probably need a little more creation to make that work. And B, having kind of bigger guys behind him makes it easier to play Pods, who's not as good a point of attack defender as Melton. If they do what I think they're going to do, which is start Draymond at the 5, so Kuminga can start at the 4, I think Melton ends up being the starter in that scenario. If you're going small, you're going to be switching more things. You need guys who can guard on an island, need less help. Melton's behind Drew Holiday. He's as good as anyone, point of attack in the league. I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, I don't really know how much I care, to be honest. I kind of expect Melton and Pods to both play 27 minutes a game or something. Like, it's like near 30. That's going to be their 3-guard rotation with, I think Buddy will be the 4th guy just for shooting.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of the way I see it shaking out.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in those terms yet, like depending on the rest of the lineup. But I think what you laid out makes a ton of sense, because if they go Wiggins, Dre, Trace, you need a little bit more juice in terms of shot creation. If you have Kuminga out there, you need a little bit less probably. So yeah. I think I would prefer that they don't start Draymond at the 5. Steve talked about that today, and we can jump into that now if you want to. But I would prefer to start Trace, and I think that's what Draymond prefers too, just judging by what he said and even judging by what Steve said a little bit. But that's going to be a front office versus coaching staff battle, it seems like.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Let's get into that, because that's like my biggest issue with this roster is not lack of a second option. It's the chemistry is going to be pretty it's a difficult thing to balance this many guys who want to play, especially guys like Kuminga who are playing for contracts. They could have some of the same issues they've had the last couple of years with the 2 timelines and conflicting agendas and just kind of balancing personalities. To your point, Draymond said this today. Draymond goes, I'm really good next to a center. I'm decent at center, but I think I'm really good next to a center. Draymond started at power forward next to Trace Jackson. So I actually disagree with Draymond, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's better as a 5-man, but it's clear what he's doing when he's saying this. So let's start there. Clearly, he doesn't want to play 5 full-time. And I don't think that's an unreasonable want in his, that's a lot of wear and tear. So I'm sure he's looking at it like, hey man, if Trace gives us 20 minutes, Looney gives us 5, if the combination of them gives us 30 minutes and I go, let's call it 10 to 15 at center, I love that. I can do that. If it's the opposite, 30 minutes and 2 minutes next to a center, I don't know how I'm going to be with that.
And Steve said the same thing today. He said, I think Draymond's really good at the 5, but do we really want to put that on his body for 82 games? And that comment can be taken in multiple ways. That could be saying to the front office, hey, let's go get a little bit more front court help. But I also think that's what Steve actually thinks. I don't think he wants to play Draymond for 25 to 30 minutes at the 5 for 82 games. That's a lot. It just is. But to go back to your original point, I actually disagree. I think he's better as a power forward. especially defensively. Because I
just think that the 5-out offense with him making decisions as a 5 is unguardable, but it does require the perfect mix of wings to make it work.
Perfect mix of wings, or go get a 5 who can actually stretch the floor. Right? It's going to be one of those two things. So, but defensively specifically,
Looney stretching the floor these days.
We'll see.
You see, he won the game with a corner 3 today.
I did see that. I'm happy for Looney. I hope he shoots some threes. But my bigger thing is, this team over the past, call it 10, 12 years, whatever, they've always been at their best when they can consistently get stops and create turnovers, right? Because that's going to spur a lot of transition offense for them. They do have a more speed than they had last year for sure on this team. I think they can play fast, and Steve has hinted at that. But number one, I want to keep the wear and tear off of Dre. It's a long season. And number two, having him more as a backside kind of roamer instead of your actual rim protector, it just bodes better for your defense. The numbers have always bared that out. It was the same when he played next to Bogut, and it was the same when he played next to Zaza, even though Zaza a little bit less mobile. And then last year with Trace and Draymond, they were outstanding defensively. The play-in didn't look like that, but that was one-off game, whatever. But in the minutes they played together, it really was outstanding. So that is my ultimate preference, to see that combination start.
What does that do to Kuminga? Because I think I'm just going to sum it up. If they start together, the 3 needs to be a shooter, and Wiggins can shoot the ball. Last year, I'm going to call last year an outlier with what happened to the shooting. If he just literally mirrors the previous 3 years, he can space the floor as a 3-man, and Kuminga can't. Kuminga plays the 4 because he's a slasher, because his game's more like like a Giannis or a Siakam. I'm not saying he's anywhere near those players, but like those are guys with perimeter ball skills, but they play the 4 because they can't shoot it. It doesn't matter how good your handle is if you can't shoot the ball.
Right. I mean, Jimmy's obviously much better, but it's similar to that too. Similar type of role. He wants to work more out of the mid post. Jimmy just doesn't want to shoot threes. Not that Jimmy can't necessarily, but it's a similar
only
vibe.
In the playoffs.
Yeah,
only in the playoffs apparently.
Let's just go trade for him. Okay, we're not getting into that yet. But no, I think this comes back to it's bigger roster issues, right? It's still somewhat ill-fitting. I think it's a little bit better than last year just because you have a little bit more size. Mm-hmm. But it just, all the pieces don't fit quite perfectly. I think it is still hard to play Wiggins and Kuminga next to each other unless you go Draymond at the 5, and that presents a whole other side of issues.
Well, that's really the only way
what we're talking about.
Yeah, their best. I mean, the issue is their best offensive lineup is not their best defensive lineup, which is probably not unique to them. But if you're a real contender, usually the answer is yes for both of those.
Right.
And then they're, just it forces them to be undersized in some ways. And then the other part of it is, how's Kuminga going to respond to coming off the bench? Especially if you don't extend him. Or it works both ways. If you give him like 150 mil, the expectation will be he starts, from the fan base, right? But if you don't pay him and then make him come off the bench, I mean, we saw him already go to the media when he's lost faith in Steve. It was so absurd if you think about it. But we've already seen him do. So it's like, we know he's sensitive to this sort of stuff. We know he wants to be the man. He wants to be featured. And it's just one of those things where it's like you're setting yourself up to be in those uncomfortable situations again. I hadn't actually considered your point. I think that's an interesting one. How much of Steve and Draymond saying this today, and maybe what they do Saturday, is a message to the front office of, look, man, just trade for a stretch 5. Find us a stretch 5, man, so we can play Kuminga at the 3, so this roster makes more sense. But you're leaving us basically 2 choices: kill Draymond physically, or make Kuminga really second guess his role. He should start talent-wise.
Yeah.
But they don't have the ability to start him with 2 bigs who can't shoot the ball. So
yeah. And it just, once again, I heard the most from Dre and Steve today, just kind of scrolling through Twitter, looking at quotes, listening to quotes. And they did seem to be pretty much lined up on everything. Outside of Draymond saying, Kuminga's a 3, not a 4, and Steve saying, he's not really a 3, but I think they're talking about different sides of the ball at the end of the day. So they do seem pretty aligned on this. And if you just go and get a stretch 5, whoever that might be, we don't need to talk about names. It makes it all much cleaner.
Lowry,
you know,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I mean Lowry would have been great because he's an all-star, but like Kelly Olynyk is a perfect example of a role player who would have downstream effects at making the roster better.
100%. And Kelly's even, I mean, you can get a little bit funky with your lineups. Even like, I don't know if you'd ever want to see him and Trace on the floor at the same time, but you can think about it. You know, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, you know, just having a guy who can stretch the floor like that. I mean, that was a huge part of 2022 was having two guys who were 4/5s, even Belly for a lot of the regular season. You know, he unlocked a ton of lineups for them. Unlocked GP2 for most of the season. Honestly, he was always attached to one of those two guys. So it just makes everything so much easier when you have a non-shooting four like Draymond.
It is kind of interesting they don't have one because so they let Otto walk, which was the right decision given where his body went health-wise, but JaMychal wasn't the answer either. So that didn't work. Then they tried Dario Saric. It just didn't work either. Same idea. And they said coming into this offseason, we need a stretch big man for all the reasons we're outlining. Like, it just unlocks a bunch of lineup possibilities, but they haven't got one. You know, like, I'm as optimistic as anyone on Quentin Post, but he is a rookie. And even if he is like Trace Jackson Davis, Trace didn't get on the floor of the first 55 games. So it's
not going to happen.
It's unlikely. So I'm just wondering, like, maybe there's a late trade here. Otherwise, they're going to be forced to play subpar lineup combos, which will essentially be Kuminga's on the bench and the coaching staff's going to have to manage him being disappointed that in a contract year, he's not getting to play more. Or they go small and they have to deal with the reality of, like, man, I don't know how many games Draymond can do of this before he's on the injured list again, you know? So
it's my biggest concern about the roster. Like you said, even really more than the secondary scoring. Cause I don't know if they're going to be, I don't think they'll be a top 5 offense, but you know, Kuminga really did take a leap as a scorer last year, and you hope that kind of continues on the same trajectory. There is more in the tank for Pods. You know, I truly, truly believe that. I think he can easily be a 15-point a game guy this year, but he can really score. He has a lot of warts, but he can really score. I don't think, obviously it would be nice to have a second option. Don't get me wrong. Like, it would be nice to have a guy who, you know, if Steph doesn't have it going, you can go to, but you can do it by committee too.
If you give me a real stretch 5 man, if you give me Kelly Olynyk, I'm just going to say that name because he's classic. Like, no one's going to lie to themselves and say, like, there's all-star upside. Like, he's just a good player. He's just a good rotation piece, right? You give me a guy like that, that means Kuminga can play 30-plus minutes a game, you know, 3, some 4, that sort of thing. He will average an efficient 20. I have zero doubt. Now, will he do everything else you want him to do? That's to be seen how quick that comes along. But, like, if your concern is like scoring punch, like open floor, get him in the mid post. No one's guarding him one-on-one. He'll do enough to alleviate pressure off Steph just in the flow of a game if you have the right spacing around him.
Correct. And he's legitimately shown that. Like, it hasn't just been, that's not just conjecture at this point. He can do that, but it's about having the right context around that to bring it out to its fullest potential. And right now the roster doesn't do that. So it's complicated, but I do think, I'm not sure if this was their main objective to kind of circle back on this whole thing. I do think Steve and Dre's comments today were pointed. I don't think they were made by mistake.
Because those dudes are incredibly smart and they're not, like, they know what they're doing when they're talking. They're political enough to know. So I hadn't even considered that angle, but I'm with you. I do think it was kind of a message to the front office of, you know, either let Looney cook from 3 or get us a real stretch 5, you know?
Sure.
So,
and for once they do have the contracts to do something like that entering the season.
Yeah. They have a lot of flexibility, a lot of expirings, and just kind of like, they can cobble stuff together in ways they couldn't in the past.
Yeah.
Before we move.
No, just one more point. And you don't even need to use the newly signed guys because you can't yet. But you can, I mean, Gary and Moody are $14 million right there. You know, so like you have flexibility, you have options, but it's just about, are they willing to pursue them this early in the season?
I mean, would you do Gary and Moody for Olynyk? Because I know I would. In the cap it works right now. It can be executed today. You don't have to wait till January. He is older though. Like, it's really sucks to give up on Moody for a guy who's 32, 33 at this point. Even if he has 2 to 3 more years. You'd do it?
I do agree that it sucks to give up on Moody, but it's like, where does he fit? or it's year 4 of where does he fit, essentially. We're really year 3 because year 1 he's a rookie, but I don't know where the minutes are coming from. And it would suck to lose 2 guys who potentially could be kind of stoppers for you in different games, in different environments against different guys. But I think I probably pull the trigger on it. It would not be an easy yes for me, but I think I would probably do it if you can guarantee some kind of health from Olynyk. He doesn't tend to have injury problems. So I think I pull the trigger, but it's not an easy yes. Yeah, it's not an easy yes. I'm not like, oh my God, send it in right now, but I think I end up doing it at the end of the day.
Would you rather let's reframe this. Would you rather trade Moody or give them a first round pick? Let's assume it's they need some youth sweetener to make this go.
Oh man. If you're getting rid of Gary, that would free up some time potentially for Moody. So I think I'd probably rather do it first, but I don't think the front office is going to view it like that. So
I feel the opposite way, because
really?
I think D'Anthony basically, he was signed to be like, all right, GP's done. We're right. Getting
agreed.
He plays the same role. He's a better shooter, but he obviously can't attack the rim the way GP could.
Yeah.
I think Moody's still kind of the odd man in the rotation if Wiggins is heavily in your plans, and he seems to be heavily in their plans right now. Yeah. And if you get a player that lets Kuminga play the 3, then I really don't know where Moody's minutes come from.
Right.
It's one of those things. So I'm not saying Toronto would do that.
Sure.
I hate both of those because I'd rather not trade for guys 30, 33 at this stage of his career. But Brook Lopez 36. He's still good. Can Olynyk give you 3 years? I think so.
I think so. And you're essentially just swapping Moody for Olynyk because, look, I love GP. I stood on the table as hard as him for anyone back in the day. But it's cooked. It's done. It just is. I agree. It just love the guy, but it is what it is at this point.
It is, yeah. All right. Before we move forward, guys, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor, Prize Picks. Guys. Where is my stuff? Okay. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible for all. You just need to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 extra cash. Guys, if you follow me, I played the Padres game last night. I played a parlay of pitchers. The Astros actually screwed me. Too much faith in Framber Valdez. What a mistake on my part. But you know what? It was still fun. I got to play there, and I'm going to get my money back this weekend. I promise you that. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get on the action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. But especially California, because I know that's where most of you guys are. Want to play Prize Picks alongside Drewski, Joe Buttons, MMA champ Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab in the app to view entries from some of the bigger names in the Prize Picks community and see how you stack up against them. So guys, it's simple. Just download the app and use the code LIGHTYEARS and you get $50 instantly when you deposit $5 for a lineup. Guys, download the app, promo code LIGHTYEARS. Prize Picks runs your game. All right, guys, here to tell you about Game Time. Look, man, you guys all know I'm an Oakland A's fan, so I'm a little heartbroken, but I'm also a baseball fan, and I have decided to bandwagon the San Diego Padres here. So the Game Time app gives me the ability to look through and get tickets at the best prices. I'm actually looking at getting some Padres tickets, flying down, going to a playoff game. I think they're a team of destiny, guys. I really do. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, Giants fans. You guys can go fuck yourselves. But Prize Picks, best deals you can possibly get. Last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets. Guys, it's easy. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. It's this simple. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the promo code LIGHTYEARS for $20 off your first deposit purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LIGHTYEARS, $20 off. Whew. By the way, I mean it. I'm going on to a Padres game. I'm doing it.
You should.
I've been before. Well, I've only been to like 6 MLB parks, so who am I to say like top 5 atmosphere for an MLB stadium? But Petco is a fun fucking atmosphere for a game.
Super fun, beautiful stadium. Like it's one of my favorite park experiences. And I'm not a Padres fan by any means, but it's every time I've gone to a game there, I've had an amazing experience. Quick note on this, is October the best month for sports? I mean, we get everything.
Yes.
We get
yes.
And NFL, MLB playoffs, NBA, you got college football, and you even get hockey starting if that's your thing. Yeah. So it's a great time of year. Everything's starting back up. And look, I'm excited for all of it. That's for sure.
Last thing I want to get to is shooting. So look, we know Klay Thompson's not here. We've talked a lot about it. Let me play Steve real quick.
Is that actually what?
I like the mentality. Whether it turns into 8 or 10, who knows? But I want Wiggs shooting, 6, 7 threes a game. I want Brandon. I want Moses. I want D'Anthony. I want to be a high volume 3-point shooting team. I think that's important for us. And the big shift is Klay's not here, right? So we were 4th in the league in 3-point attempts last year, but Klay probably shot 8 or 10 of them himself every game. So we're going to have to fill that void, and that's going to come from multiple people.
For the record, Klay took 9 threes a game last year. Shocker, 8 to 10, 9, right?
Yep.
I mean, he's right. I think this is probably the most interesting thing for me, where it's like so much of Warriors basketball has been about like precision ball movement to feed the Splash Brothers, 2 of the 5 best shooters of all time. Like Steph's the greatest. Klay might be the 2nd best. Yeah. You could argue Ray Allen, so I'll say top 5. But he's like, they actively passed up putting more shooting around the 2 of them for like high IQ players, because they're like, you know what we want? We want those guys taking 43s. We don't need 40 as a team. I want those 2 guys taking 40. Now they're kind of built like more like a traditional team, right? Yeah. They got more guys who can shoot. And I'm curious because, like, I think Pods can shoot. Melton's proven he can shoot a little bit. Wiggins, if his head's on, if he's locked in, like he's proven he can shoot 39% on open threes on a consistent basis. But he's obviously a shooter, So I'm curious to see how it plays out. Like, do they actually play differently, or do they just play like they did the last 2 years, and instead of trying to find Klay, everyone's just trying to pass to Steph?
It's very interesting because they're saying all the right things now, as you always do in training camp, as you always do when media day comes around. Hey, we need to adjust how we play a little bit. Steve's saying it. Steph's even saying it. They're talking about adjusting the way that they play. Will that actually come to fruition when they get on the floor? Who knows? I think Steph's always going to be Steph to a certain degree, but they are definitely built a little bit more traditionally, or not traditionally, I guess, modernly, with how the roster is now. But I do think, they did a very nice job of threading the needle. They got guys who can shoot. They brought them in, but they did also, bring in some high IQ guys as well, like Melton, very high IQ in my opinion. Slow-mo, obviously very high IQ. So I do think they did a nice job of threading the needle between what their style has been and what they kind of need to be moving forward. I think they can really go ahead.
I was gonna say Pod's shooting is the most interesting one for me too, right? So
yeah. And it's been, he shot it very well off the dribble in college and pretty well off the dribble last year. It's more the off the catch stuff that's interesting to me. It looks a little bit more robotic when he's shooting off the catch for whatever reason. He's just one of those guys who it's easy for him to get it off the dribble. But I think that's what he needs to be doing anyways. I think obviously I don't think teams are ever going to leave him wide open if he's off the ball. I just don't see that happening. He's too much of a threat in too many ways. The bigger thing for me with Pods, and I think I talked about this a little bit last time I was on the pod, he needs his defender to be chasing him over ball screens, because that will open up everything else, not only for him, but for other players, because he is a good decision maker when he gets in the paint. So is he shooting the ball at a high enough clip, coming off ball screens, off the dribble, to get defenders to stay close to him so he can go by him? Because he is crafty, he's strong. So if guys are playing him close, he's going to be able to get paint touches, and that's going to open up stuff for everybody on the team.
That's everything, because he's not John Moran. He's not going to blow by you his first step. It's got to be like, I'm terrified of his shot, and then opens everything up. He's also not going to be Steph Curry, but like, dude, Jamal Murray exists. Like I can think of a lot of guys who are not explosive athletes, but also not slow, who Pods can model his game after. And the consistent theme with all of them is you're scared when they go off of a screen because they'll hit it every time. That's really what it is. Like everyone associates it with Steph, but it's like true of every guard in the modern NBA, unless you're a freak 1%, like disciple of Derrick Rose. Like everyone else is just like, I'm gonna basically put you on your back heels anytime I'm going to shoot the ball. And then I'm going to make a decision based upon like, if you lunge at me or not the most way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he's definitely the most interesting part of it, but I think they did bring in a good amount of shooting. Obviously, like you said, Buddy can shoot the crap out of it. I want to say over the last 7-8 years, he's actually second in the league in 3-point makes to Steph. And part of that is because Klay missed, 100+ games over that time span. But still, Buddy is one of the best shooters in the league. So if he's open, his feet are down, I'm assuming it's going in. Melton is a very, very good shooter. I think he's better. He's going to be better than people expect. I was looking at stats the other day.
37-ish%. Like they got a bunch of 37% guys.
He hit like 160 of them a couple years ago on like 38, 39%. Like the dude can shoot, you can't leave him wide open. So I am interested to see kind of how they build this all out in terms of the offense. And this is where I think Stotts is a huge addition because number one, he's a voice that Steve is going to respect. They had a lot of battles against each other in the conference finals. He's a very well thought of guy in coaching circles. And number two, what he's known for is being creative offensively. He changed that system multiple times over his time in Portland, and they always had top 5 offenses. A lot of that was Dame and CJ. Sure, you got to have the guys to do it, but he still was able to manufacture it no matter what the personnel is. So I think he's a huge addition. We'll see how it plays out, but I think he's going to be very helpful to Steve, and I think he's somebody that Steve will actually listen to, which isn't always the case with assistant coaches and Steve.
Yeah, and like he's come from teams where, he has Dame, and then he has to piecemeal it together, and they were a top 5 offense. And Dame's a Hall of Famer, great player. But it's a lot of like, how can I use the gravity that my superstar has to get like Melton going, get someone else going, that sort of thing. Melton, actually, the funny thing about Melton is he's probably a better shooter than Warriors fans think. Like I think he's 38% from 3 over the last like 5 years. He gets it, and more importantly, he puts it up fast. He's not afraid to shoot the ball. He's not a hesitant shooter. He's also probably a worse finisher than you think inside. Like there's a lot of like Dante with him offensively. Where like, oh, he shoots it better than I thought. And then when he gets to the rim, you're like, oh, I would have thought you could do. You're so quick. Why can't you finish that? Like that's the sort of thing. So, but honestly, if he can guard the point of attack and he kind of gets hot as a shooter,
sure,
it's great.
And he is a bit more athletic than Dante. He's just a bit bouncier. So you would hope if he is kind of slip cutting, backdooring, you would hope a few more of those are just dunks. Like he threw down a couple nasty ones in the series a couple of years ago. Like the dude can get up. So you're hoping there's enough space to where he can just dunk it and not have to worry about finishing. But yeah, the finishing is definitely a little bit, like you said, it is a lot like Dante, but he's a better defender than Dante too. If he's full,
a lot better.
He can. I think that's if he's healthy. Like you said, I mean, there's Drew, but he's in that Caruso, Pete GP2 class. He is excellent on that end guarding the ball, and he's good off ball too. He made a lot of off ball plays, and like I keep references in that series in 2022. He made a lot of he made a ton of off ball. He's
got like a 6'10" wingspan. I mean, he's always like top 5 in like steals. Like he just gets his hands on everything. Like he is kind of the perfect guy to put next to Steph from a role player perspective. Like he'll take the ball. He'll hit open shots, and he's not going to try to dominate the ball on offense either. So I think if they can find a way to thread the needle with featuring Kuminga more on offense while having enough spacing in the front court, Melton makes all the sense in the world as like that Drew Holiday GP2 style. Like on offense, he's going to take his shots, and he'll get hot some nights. Some nights he'll go 4 for 7 from 3. And, give you 15 points, and you're going to be like, yeah, it's a Melton night. But when that's not going down, he's still going to be defending and making the right play.
Yeah. No, I mean, like you kind of just said, a Steph, Melton, Kuminga, Dre, and a stretch 5, that would be a lineup you could go to against a lot of different teams, and you get a lot out of it. You'd be good enough defensively, I think, but also you'd have some potency on O. So it's all about getting that piece, but that's
that's a concern for a different time at this point.
Sure. And so like that's kind of to tie it together. Like I'm excited to see what this first preseason. It's preseason.
Yeah.
The starters are gonna probably play 15 minutes. So something in that range in the first game. You know, they'll do their normal first quarter rotation, half of the second quarter, and then we're gonna see whatever the rest of the guys are. But it does feel like there's a lot of like, yeah, I'm excited to see what the new combinations look like, and I'm excited if they're trying to put a little pressure on the front office to make a move. I'd be excited
100%.
about that too.
100%. And Steve even said it. He said, you know, it feels like a new beginning in some ways. It feels like I do feel a good energy in general from camp. It seems like it's all positive right now. It's easy to be positive when games haven't started. And nobody's
easy to be positive when you're in Hawaii.
Yeah, that too.
Anytime I've been there, I've come back like a new person. I'm like, I love it here. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. In Hawaii, nobody's heard about playing time. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's going right now because it's going right for every team. But we'll see. We'll see. But I am very excited.
Who's having their Michael Scott Sandals Jamaica moment? That's what I want to know. Who's just over there just being like loving the island life? Pods?
Pods. Oh, Pods for sure. We're talking about guys on the team. I was thinking front office characters, but Pods for sure. Pods is having a blast.
That one would actually get us in trouble. So.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll end it there. Everyone, subscribe. We're going to be live directly after the first preseason game. You need a live post-game show in the preseason.